Okay, today we're looking at a piece of history that honestly sounds like it was pulled straight out of a wild Hollywood movie. But I promise you, every single bit of it is grounded in the historical record. Just imagine this for a second. You're right in the middle of the most devastating global conflict in human history, World War II. You look over at the soldier next to you in the trenches, and it's not a man. Nope. It is a 550-pound, fully grown Syrian brown bear.
Which brings us to a really bizarre question, doesn't it? Like, can a bear actually be legally drafted into the army? And I don't just mean kept around as a cute camp pet or some unofficial mascot. I mean formally drafted, throwing rigid military bureaucracy right on a collision course with wild nature. No way, right?
Well, the answer is actually yes. Meet soldier number 253. That was his actual official service number. His rank? Private. His unit? The 22nd Artillery Supply Company of the Polish Second Corps. And his name was Wojtek, which, wonderfully enough, translates in Polish to joyful warrior.
Okay, let's dive into this physiological and behavioral profile because it is absolutely wild. We are talking about a combatant who at his peak weighed 250 kilograms, that's over 550 pounds, and stood roughly 180 centimeters or nearly 6 feet tall when he was up on his hind legs. But what makes Wojtek so endlessly fascinating is how deeply he adapted to human soldiering. Just look at his diet. He wasn't out foraging for berries. He ate marmalade, he drank beer straight from the bottle, which was his absolute favorite, by the way, and he had a real fondness for cigarettes. Though it's worth noting he didn't actually smoke them, he just swallowed them whole, provided they were lit first, of course.
Section 1. Mascot of the 22nd Company. So, how exactly does a bear end up in a military supply company in the first place? To understand that, we have to look at the origins of his incredible bond with the soldiers.
Well, the year was 1942. Thousands of Polish soldiers and civilians had just been released from horrific Soviet labor camps, and they were making this incredibly arduous journey through the Middle East. While they were up in the mountains of Iran, a group of these displaced soldiers ran into a young boy carrying a malnourished bear cub in a burlap sack. The poor cub's mother had been shot by hunters. The soldiers, maybe recognizing a fellow orphan of war, bought the cub right then and there. The price? Some canned beef, chocolate, and a Swiss Army knife. Corporal Pyotr Prendish really stepped up as Mother Bear, initially hand-feeding this tiny cub condensed milk out of an old vodka bottle, using a rag as a makeshift teat. Almost instantly, Wojtek became this absolutely essential source of comfort and a massive morale booster for these traumatized exiles.
And you know, as Wojtek grew, he fully integrated into camp life. He didn't just live near the 22nd Company, he lived with them. He literally slept in their tents to keep them warm at night. He loved playing tag and would regularly wrestle 4 grown men at once just for fun. He even figured out how to operate the chain pull showers in the desert camps so he could cool himself down. In fact, his love for those showers led to one of his greatest early military achievements. One day, Wojtek wandered into the bathhouse for his daily cooldown, only to stumble upon an enemy spy hiding right there inside. The infiltrator was so utterly terrified by the sudden appearance of this massive bear that he surrendered on the spot, spilling enemy secrets to the guards. This event was a real game changer. It cemented his role in the 22nd Corps. He wasn't just a pet anymore, he was a highly functional, deeply protective part of the camp. And his reward for bagging a spy? Extra beer and unlimited shower privileges. Not a bad deal.
Now, this wasn't a stationary unit. The 22nd Artillery Supply Company was constantly on the move, training and gearing up for combat. Wojtek traveled with them all the way from Iran in 1942, through Palestine, Syria, and Iraq, eventually landing in Egypt by late 1943. Along the way, he'd ride right in the passenger seats of the transport trucks, completely imprinting on his human companions. But as they prepped for the next massive leg of their journey, a huge bureaucratic wall stood right in their way.
Section 2. Enlisting Private Wojtek. This brings us to a pivotal turning point in our narrative, the moment the beloved mascot officially became a soldier.
Now, what's really interesting about this situation is the clash of rules. By early 1944, the Polish forces were assigned to join the British 8th Army in the Italian campaign. They're at the port of Alexandria, Egypt, waiting to board the transport ship MS Battery. The problem? The British had extremely strict military regulations forbidding any pets or mascot animals on transport ships. Period. The authorities flat out refused to let Wojtek board. But to the Polish soldiers, leaving their best friend behind? Completely out of the question. So they found a brilliant bureaucratic loophole.
If pets weren't allowed on the ship, well, they simply wouldn't classify him as a pet. The Polish army officially drafted Wojtek.
Yep, he was enlisted as a private in the 22nd Corps, given his own serial number and issued an official military paybook. Two soldiers, Henryk Zakharevich and Dimitar Savlugo, were formally registered as his caretakers. Because he was now an official soldier, he was legally entitled to board that ship, and he was even granted double military food rations. So on paper, Wojtek was no longer cargo. He was a lawful combatant heading straight for the front lines of Europe.
Section 3. Hero of Monte Cassino. And the front lines they were heading to? Some of the absolute most brutal of the entire war. We're now entering the grueling, bloody reality of the Italian campaign. And this brilliantly illustrates the terrifying challenge the 22nd Company faced at the Battle of Monte Cassino in May 1944. This was a heavily fortified German mountain stronghold that had already repelled multiple Allied assaults. The 22nd Company was tasked with driving trucks up these dark, treacherous hairpin mountain roads under constant heavy enemy artillery fire just to supply the frontline troops. Look at the sheer logistics required here: 17,000 tons of ammunition, 1,200 tons of fuel, 1,100 tons of food. The physical labor required to move these heavy crates in mountainous terrain while bombs are dropping around you is just unimaginably exhausting. Initially, Wojtek was terrified by the deafening noise of the explosions. And honestly, that's completely understandable for an animal with such sensitive hearing. He even tried to climb trees to escape the chaos. But as he watched his exhausted human friends struggling to haul these massive crates of mortar and artillery ammo, something incredible happened. He made an active choice to join them. He climbed down. He walked right over to the supply trucks, stood up upright on his hind legs, and held out his front paws. The soldiers, completely amazed, loaded a 100-pound crate of 25-pounder artillery shells right into his arms. To put that in perspective, that's a crate that normally took 4 men to move. Wojtek carried it flawlessly to the artillery positions without dropping a single shell, and then he went right back for more, doing this repeatedly throughout the entire battle.
Now, you might be thinking, come on, is this just a myth? But historical records and eyewitness accounts completely validate his actions. Lieutenant Ludwik Radeczek's official report confirmed this, stating Wojtek was observed carrying these 100-pound boxes of shells from the trucks directly to the gun emplacements. It was an activity witnessed and documented by numerous Allied soldiers, including British troops who just couldn't believe their eyes when they saw a massive bear hauling munitions through an active war zone.
Section 4. Corporal Wojtek's lasting legacy. The Allies ultimately captured the Monte Cassino monastery on May 18, 1944. And the bear who helped them do it, he would not be forgotten.
So the crucial point is that his massive contributions to the 22nd Corps were genuinely recognized by the military high command. For his bravery and tireless labor, Wojtek was officially promoted to the rank of corporal. But perhaps the highest honor came from his own unit. The 22nd Artillery Supply Company requested and received official permission to change their military insignia. From that point on, their official emblem became a depiction of a bear walking upright, hoisting a massive artillery shell. One of the most decorated logistical units of the entire war now fought under the banner of their bear.
But you know, the end of the war brought a pretty bittersweet reality. Due to post-war political changes, many of these soldiers knew that returning home could mean imprisonment or worse. Displaced once again, the Polish Second Corps was demobilized and resettled in Scotland. When the unit was finally disbanded in 1947, Wojtek needed a permanent home. He was relocated to the Edinburgh Zoo, where he lived out his retirement until his death in 1963. But here's the beautiful part. He was never abandoned. His former comrades regularly visited him. They'd toss him cigarettes over the enclosure and speak to him in Polish, to which the old soldier would always excitedly respond.
Which leaves us with this final thought. When we look back at the incredible records of the 22nd Company, how do we classify Corporal Wojtek? Was he merely an animal swept up in human affairs, just a quirky military mascot? Or, having shared their rations, their exhausting labor, the absolute terror of artillery fire, and the tragedy of losing their homeland, was he a true veteran? It's an amazing testament to the profound bond between humans and animals, and a reminder that sometimes the most joyful warriors come in the most unexpected forms. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this piece of history stays with you.